Wrestling creates bonds with people. When I'm training actors, there's this trust we have to build in each other.
There's a lot of buzz for this movie.
I do know.
What can you tell me about the Iron Claw?
It's a really cool thing, and just to be a part of it's awesome.
Zac told me he only trained for 7 weeks.
Zac was able to absorb a lot, so I threw a lot at him.
Do you think with what you've taught Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White, they could have a match on Raw this Monday?
I didn't train him to go to a match. Give me a month with them, absolutely.
They could make a movie just like the Iron Claw about your family.
They probably can. I've had people reach out to me.
This career has the potential to overshadow what you did before.
I didn't really think about it that way.
There's a lot of buzz for this movie, as I'm sure you know, right?
I do know.
It's been happening for months, but now that the movie's about to come out, I don't know about you, but I've been getting a lot of texts. Have you seen the Iron Claw? What do you think about the Iron Claw? What can you tell me about the Iron Claw?
You know, when I got approached by Sean Durkin, the director, to help him make this movie, I didn't know who the production company was, and I really didn't. I was kind of like, all right, let's make this movie. It sounds like it's a legit thing, and there's a lot of not legit things in Hollywood. People contacting you all the time. So then I agreed to it. I was telling my youngest son, who's a junior in college studying film, and he's like, so he researches it. And he's like, oh my God, Dad, it's an A24 movie. And I'm like, all right, is that good? Like I know A24. And he's like, no, that's my favorite production company. You don't understand. This is the most incredible thing of all time. I'm like, great, awesome. So then as we keep going, they're A24, they still try to pretend they're a small production company, but they've won like 2 of the last 5 Oscars or whatever,
Yeah.
So they're getting much, much, much bigger. So it's a really good thing. It's a really cool thing. And just to be a part of it, it's like awesome. But, to be more than part of it, I've said that a lot of times. God, just to be a part of it is cool.
Yeah.
But to have when the director's like, "Hey, can you help me make this movie?" I'm like, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, you're not just a part of this. Like when I was at the press conference, right, the day after the premiere, when I saw you in Dallas,
Right.
Every single person that sat there on the press conference mentioned you by name and said that they wouldn't be able to be doing what they were doing if it wasn't for you.
That's good to hear. You don't get that all the time, even though you're putting in the work. But I just created a bond. Wrestling creates bonds with people.
Yeah.
Being on the road, traveling on the road, working, being in the trenches, we call it, with other wrestlers, of course. But also, when I'm training actors, there's this trust that we have to build in each other. I have to get theirs, and when that happens, you just create this bond, and I think that, I have a bond with all of these actors. I know them as people, not just, Zac Efron, the actor, or Jeremy Allen White, the Bear. I know him as the guy in the ring. Let's do this, type thing. So it's pretty cool to be able to get that rapport with people.
Yeah. I don't know if there's ever been this much excitement around a wrestling film. Like when The Wrestler came out, what was that, 15 years ago?
Right.
Of course there was excitement, right? And that went on to have an Oscar run. I feel like now, maybe it's just the state of the world that we're in right now, there are a lot of eyeballs on this movie from wrestling fans.
I was concerned at first thinking, okay, are we going to get, a lot of eyeballs in this? How big of a movie this is going to be? How much they're going to put into it? Because there's been other wrestling movies, of course, back for the last 40 years, from Paradise Alley with, Sylvester Stallone, basically. But to see the buzz that an actual production studio, like a legit one, put behind their movie and made, of all the movies that get coming out, they made us their Christmas release.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. And that's one of those moments,
It's amazing. Like people I haven't talked to in years saw that I went to the premiere and they went, how's the movie? And I'm like, oh, wow. Like,
yeah, man.
You're that, and we're talking big names in WWE who I haven't talked to in years are the reaching
guys that
out.
don't call you back and then all of a sudden out of the blue call you back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And those people are excited.
Right.
So if those people are excited, I already know that fans are excited, but if people who are in WWE, people who are in AEW are that excited, I can only imagine how excited fans are about this.
Well, they should be. They should be, because it's doing one of the most influential families of wrestling a service, a really portraying their story and not making it a martyr film where you want to leave and slash your wrists. They're actually making this movie like a really true, awesome movie about, it's not a wrestling movie.
Yeah.
It's about a family who happens to be wrestlers. You know, does it make sense? It's like the Orange County Choppers, that, you know, TV show wasn't really about building motorcycles. It was about this family dynamic. It's kind of the same thing what is going on with Iron Claw.
Yeah, the great thing about this is you don't need to know anything about wrestling.
Exactly.
You don't need to have ever watched a wrestling match to appreciate this movie,
right, and
the relationships between these characters. But with that said, this is the best in-ring wrestling I've ever seen in a movie.
Boom.
Ever.
There you go. It's got Guerrero name on it, man.
it's so believable, because I think Zach told me he only trained for 7 weeks.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
He looks like he's been doing it for decades.
You squish in as much as you can and whatever they can absorb. And every actor's different. But, Zach was able to absorb a lot. So we kind of sped him through it, but, I threw a lot at him. And when you're creating the scenes, there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. You have to take in the script, what the director wants, how the DP wants to shoot it, but also what your actors can and can't perform. So you have to work within their parameters. Once I can get them to, like I said, give me trust and just know that I'm never going to put them in harm's way. Safety is the number one important thing for me. Of course, we have to get the shot, but at the same time, I have a hurt actor, it's bad. So the number one thing is safety, and I won't let them do anything that I'm sure they can't repeat 100 times. It's one of those things. There's fluke accidents and freak accidents, things that happen, but I explained to the actors, I go, guys, and same thing with my Glow Girls, everybody on that awesome Netflix show. I explained to them, y'all know how to wrestle. You just don't know yet. And they're like, what do you mean? So I portray it to acting a lot. What are you doing in acting? Constantly you're convincing, the studios that you're better looking than you are, you're a better actor than you are, you're taller than you are, you're much more handsome or much more beautiful than you actually are. They're like, yeah, I go, that's what I've been doing in wrestling for the last, 20 years, 25 years. People, every time they see me, they're like, I thought you were a lot bigger. Well, yeah, I portray myself a lot bigger. There's little tricks that we have. And I take a lot of those tricks and put them into the acting, put them into Hollywood. So those actors, I'm showing them, I go, you may not be able to do that move, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's 100 ways to get from A to B. Let's figure out what's best for you, and let's make that work. And then I got a lot of Hollywood tricks as well.
The holidays just around the corner. If you're wanting to burn some extra calories to help with weight, or if you're looking to detoxify after a night of perhaps overindulging, check out the infrared sauna blanket from Bon Charge. I've been using this for months, and I love how the sauna blanket raises your heart rate while you're just kind of sitting there relaxing. You can burn up to 600 calories in one session. I was saying to my wife, Rachel, how badly I wanted a sauna because I knew of all the health benefits. Then we looked at the price, and then we went, oh, wow, that infrared sauna blanket from Bon Charge is so much better because you get all the same benefits for a fraction of the price. It actually might be better than a real sauna because it heats up way faster in less than a minute, and then you can just sit there while you're reading or watching TV or doing whatever you want, and the infrared sauna blanket does its thing. Best of all, Bon Charge has lightning fast worldwide shipping for free and a 12-month warranty. You can save 25% this holiday season when you go right there to boncharge.com/CVV. This deal is hot. See what I did there? It's a sauna blanket, and that's a savings of over $170. And when you go to boncharge.com/CVV, the code is automatically applied. So take advantage of this deal while it's still going on for the holiday season.
If there's any TV show or movie right now that has pro wrestling in it, they're calling you now. You're the guy in Hollywood. So walk me back. How did you get this role to begin with?
After wrestling, when I stepped away from WWE, I was like, what am I going to do? I just couldn't be on the road at that time. We were on the road 200, 50 days a year. There was one year I was on the road. I was in a hotel room 300 days that year.
Wow.
So I was only home 65 days the entire year. So I was like, I can't do that anymore. Like, not just for mentally, but my body. I knew my body was to start breaking down. I have to start getting an exit plan. I should have really started 5 years before this, 10 years before this. But, the Guerreros are wrestling. So when I stepped away, I was like, what am I going to do? Let me try getting into some stunts and some acting. That's what my uncle Mondo did when he left wrestling. He retired with, a SAG pension and was, all about acting in stunts and stuff like that by his mentor, Gene LaBelle, my mentor as well. So I started doing that a little bit, and I was, start taking driving courses and, high fall courses. And my wife looks at me, she's like, why are you doing that? You're not just a stunt man. You're like super specialized in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess you're right. So like the pieces fell into play and, in the right spots. And I became, the person for Glow, and that morphed into, Young Rock and all these different TV shows that I've done, like one-offs. Like I just did another show on Apple TV called Loot with Maya Rudolph.
And they had a wrestling scene?
They had a wrestling episode, so they called me up, and I, put Ron Funches through it.
Oh, we love Ron.
Yeah, Ron's great, right? He's so good. He was a big wrestling fan, so it made it so much easier.
He's even had a match.
Yeah. So we can't, it's like if there's a wrestling show, they're calling me, and if they can afford me, let's do it.
But how does the original phone call work for like, we've got this show called Glow that we're working on. Can you be the wrestling?
So the stunt coordinator, Shauna Duggins, she calls me. She goes, "Hey, I'm the stunt coordinator for this new TV show called Glow," and I'm like, "That's like Glow from like Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling." She's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Well, that's funny because my uncle was the original trainer of the original Glow Girls, my Uncle Mono."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh wow, that's great, awesome." So they brought me in for an interview, and they interviewed. I had thought like I was just going in like getting the job. Like, no. I had to interview they interviewed like 10 people. And when I got there was, a round table of producers and EPs and just writers and all these different people. So I went in there and kind of like, I just didn't BS them. I basically told everybody like, hey, look, everybody's going to tell you in Hollywood that they can do it. And everybody's full of crap. I'm going to tell you what I can and can't do. And if I can't do it, I'll tell you I can't do it, but I probably know somebody that can. So let me make a couple phone calls and let's make it happen. They really like that, and it just, so I got the job, whatever went on. But when the show ended due to COVID and all that kind of stuff, I got an email from Liz Flahive, one of the executive producers, one of the creators, the showrunners, her and Carly Minch. So I got an email from her, and she says, "Look, this was a show about women wrestlers. We had women directors, we had women showrunners, we had women stunt coordinator. It was women. She goes, we were dead set on having a woman wrestling coordinator, and then you walked in the room." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, like you what other person could have navigated training 14 girls and 2 stunt girls and I go, "Yeah, I guess you're right." It's like I was like, I grew up with women, like all my cousins. I was the only cousin around all these girls all the time, and I don't know. I guess I learned how to. I guess she said navigate your way through it, but you just get along, and that's how that kind of happened. I don't know. It was really weird. It just happened, but I felt like it was going to happen. I knew. I was like, well, you know how sometimes you can just tell.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm the guy. Just get me in the room. I'm the guy for this.
So how long between you meeting Zac Efron to actually filming the wrestling scenes in the movie?
When I first met him in the ring, we talked a couple different times,
like
and
on the phone.
I have a ring set up in Irvine, California, and he's in LA. So he first didn't want to come down. I started driving down because I have a very private area. It's not like, because LA is so expensive, it's so hard to have a great training facility. If that's not in like a barrio or like the
there really
the
are
projects,
a lot. I think other than Rikishi's school in the Valley.
But still, that's awesome school, but it's not in a super safe
and it's
area.
also not technically in LA.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, it's really expensive to do that. So, there's not a lot of great places to train that are private. You know, it's one thing if you're going to a school, but look, if I'm going to shut down the whole school because I have an A-list actor in my place. Well, that's what I have in Irvine. Mm-hmm. Super secluded, very, very nice. There's no issues. I could have, you know, whoever that I could have The Rock in there, or, you know, the number A-list, any A-list actor I can have in there, and it's super nice for them. Very clean, great facility, and super private. So that's kind of what we did. And he first didn't want to drive down, but then once he came down once, he's like, okay, this is our place, 100%. So he was driving an hour. Usually it's me driving up an hour, you know, to a facility that we can train people at, but because I'm in Orange County, you know, like you know, as you are.
I am also in Orange County.
But, you know, he was coming down, and it was just, we had great sessions, man. We probably worked maybe 10 sessions of just get him in the ring at first and get him, you know, even before we really had the script, like the final script, like just get him familiar with the ring and what we do. And I always I kind of train them like getting a child into the ocean. You know, you have to show them, hey, this is fun, but also these ways can kill you. You have to have respect for that. You have to, you know your place. And the same thing with being in a wrestling ring, as you've been in. It's very dangerous. People think, oh, it's a trampoline, and it's really not. It's really, really not. It's metal and wood and a little thin mat. And of course, my ring is, because it's a shooting ring, I have it definitely more padded and more safe, and it's really perfect shooting ring in. But I had to kind of show the actors, like, okay, guys, you have to respect this, but let's get to work.
So how different would it be if Zac was training to be a pro wrestler versus training to play a pro wrestler in a movie? How different is your training?
80% different. So different. I'm not training these actors to be in a WrestleMania match. Yeah. I'm training them to look like an actor look like a wrestler in a scene.
And it's really just like move for move, I guess, really. Like they're not filming entire matches.
No, in Iron Claw, we filmed entire matches. Sean Durkin, the director, really wanted to get the feel of a real match and then pick and choose what he wanted. Yeah. There's other productions that I'm shooting like, okay, 30 seconds or 10 seconds, or sometimes we want one move. But Sean wanted these wrestling sequences. So if you see one of the opening matches that happens to be me and Zac in, that's probably a 10, 12-minute match. And we filmed that probably 10 to 15 times.
Wow.
So I tell, you know, the actors, I go, sometimes this is easier than what we do in WWE, but sometimes it's much harder, because I can, you know, I'll go 20 minutes in a match at WrestleMania. Great, let's do it. Or in a pay-per-view, but I'm 20 minutes and I'm done. I go, you're doing this 3 to 4 to 5 or 10-minute match 10 to 15 times. You're doing it over 4 hours. And then you're taking a break to go to lunch, and then you're coming back and we're filming it again. Yeah. So it's very difficult. By the end of a couple of those matches that Zac had, he was spent. You couldn't tell in the match, but afterwards he even came to me and goes, man, this is maybe one of the hardest days I've ever had on set. Really? He's like, wow, yeah.
The shape that he's in this movie.
I saw him transforming. I mean, he already came in shape, but he's a machine. He's just a machine. But, you know, we'd be training, he'd get off, you know, hey, man, I got to take a break. I got to eat this meal. So he's eating a pre-made meal or having a shake as I'm talking to him, you know, and he was constantly just feeding the machine. There's a reason why he looks the way he does. I mean, he was in contest shape.
Oh, yeah. He looks like he's about to step onto a stage.
It was
and compete as a bodybuilder.
It was crazy.
He looks painfully in shape in this movie.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we trained together a few different times. In fact, we trained at my house one time. I was like, hey, man, he's like, I got to get a workout in. I said, well, I'm only, 10 minutes away. I got a gym at the house. I got a really nice gym. So he came in, we trained at the house. And then my wife, she's like, who's coming over? And I'm like, Zac Efron. So then she comes over, we make food, and he hangs out for like 4 hours. And my son's there, and his girlfriend at the time's there, and she's like, does this happen all the time? Like, do you have like actors coming to your house? Well, sometimes. But then, I have a 1963 SS Impala convertible that's out in front that was the first car that me and Eddie ever went on TV with.
Wow.
That John Cena previously owned after that, and gifted it to me after Eddie died.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Since then, I've had a complete redone frame off restoration and stuff. But Zach saw it and was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! So you want to go for a ride?" He's like, "Yeah." So we went for a ride around the block, and I got a pump and stereo in it. I'm like cruising up and down the block a little bit, like pumping the stereo. Well, as I go up this cul-de-sac and I come back down, well, one of my neighbors comes out. They go, "Hey, no one pumps around here like Chavo." And they're like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" And so I pull up, and Zac Efron's in the passenger seat, and my neighbor's his girlfriend was like, "Oh, do you live around here?" And I go, "This is my friend Zach." And they're like, "Oh, hi, do you live around here?" It's like, he goes, "No, I live in LA." She's like, "Oh," he's like, "I'm thinking about buying a place around here." She goes, "Oh, you should. It's really cool." He's like, "All right, cool." We drive off, and then 2 hours later, I get a text from her like, "WTF? Was Zac Efron?" I'm like, "Yeah, I told you it was my friend Zach." And she's like, "Oh my God, like what the heck? How was that happening?" Long story.
Wow.
It's funny.
So winter is here, and I'm sure you can relate. It's tough to find the right temperature when you're sleeping. So recently, I found a way to find the perfect temperature every single time with silver-infused bed sheets made by Miracle Made that were inspired by NASA. Using silver-infused fabrics that, yes, are inspired by NASA, have self-cooling properties for a better night's sleep. And that technology, infused with silver, helps to prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, which means that they will stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than other sheets. So no more gross-smelling bed sheets. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than some 5-star hotel bed sheets. And since it's the holiday season, Miracle sheets are the perfect gift for your spouse or your family, your friends, or hey, even for you, if you want to sleep on some much nicer sheets than what you have right now. Go to trymiracle.com/CVV. When you go there, you'll see, oh my gosh, I'm already saving over 40%. Well, check this out. Enter the code CVV at checkout. You'll save an additional 20%, plus you'll get 3 free towels thrown in. That's trymiracle.com/CVV, and this is backed by their 30-night guarantee. So if this isn't for you, they've got you covered. It's trymiracle.com/CVV.
When you go to wrestling school, the first thing you learn is how to bump. Is that the first thing you're teaching actors?
No, God, no. I try not to bump them.
Okay.
As much as I can. And now there's sometimes, sometimes you can't avoid it. But I work around it. So a lot of times I'll have the actor in there with another actor who's maybe a wrestler in Perfect World that they can bump, and it hides those bumps. So, I mean, that's what we do in wrestling as well. There's a lot of times I'm in there with somebody who's hurt. You'll never tell that they're hurt because I'm the one doing all the moves.
Yeah, and I guess
I'm the bumping around, moving around.
And I don't know if everyone realizes this. For every actor in the movie, there's also someone who can do the stunt version of that.
Yeah, but it didn't necessarily the match with Kevin Von Erich and Harley Race.
Yeah.
The match with Kevin Von Erich and Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Those were actors.
Wow.
So I had 2 actors in there who never wrestled before, trying to get matches out of them. Wow. Aaron Dean Anderson did one, was Ric Flair, and then Kevin Anton was Harley Race. He looked great,
He did. He sounded just like him
Harley
too.
Race. Yeah, man. I was kind of telling him. He came up to me afterwards at the premiere in Dallas, and he was like, he goes, "Chavo, you made us look so good, man." He goes, originally I thought like, okay, we're just gonna be the wrestling, but he's like, "I don't know how you did." Like, he was so amazed, and I was like, man, there's just these little tricks, and working with the director and working with the editor and working with you and on certain things. I mean, he was so appreciative. Like, it was really cool. I go, man, you made me look good. But he was like, "I can't believe you made me look like that." I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
You can't hide running the ropes. And I was actually really impressed that there's that shot in the trailer where Zach is hitting the ropes.
Yeah.
Hitting the ropes. You can't fake that, right? And
Right.
and if you're not good at it, it is so telling.
Oh, yeah.
As a wrestling fan,
Yeah.
you'd be like, that guy clearly has no idea what he's doing. but Zac looked like he was a veteran in there.
You know, some people can do it, some people don't. If he couldn't run the ropes great, we wouldn't have had that shot in there.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? We would have shot something else so that he could do great, like, you know. But he did run those ropes great, you know. And first, they're always, you know, you've been in a ring, and how many times did they go hit the ring and the ropes? They're like, yeah, we really want to do this. And after like 3 or 4 times, like, oh, ow, oh, I didn't know that this hurts so bad. And in fact, I think Jeremy talked about that. It's like, man, like there's everything in the ring hurts. He couldn't believe how much it really hurt. But you get kind of used. I try to get them slowly introduced to the pain and kind of start liking it.
So what does the script actually say when it comes to a match? Does it?
Every script's different.
Okay.
This script was, you know, Sean was a wrestling fan, so definitely had some ideas what he wanted to do and the way he you know, talked about things. But still, like, I'm like, okay, hold on. I got that in my head. Okay, my job is to make it better. It's like that one company. We don't make things, we make them better in a sense, but Alcon. But the one scene in there, he wanted something to happen in the match, but the dialogue didn't match that. So I pulled him aside and said, Sean, that doesn't, the dialogue, what you're saying is not matching what we're doing in the ring. He's like, well, let's rewrite it right now. And I'm like, huh? And he's like, yeah, so we rewrote the scene right there. We rewrote the whole little scene, like how they were going, we wanted them to talk so that it matched the match that we were doing. So that was pretty cool. Like, you know, I don't think I got a writer's credit, but
you got a lot of credits though.
Yeah, I did. I got like 3 credits on the movie.
So what are the 3 credits?
3 credits. So one, the big one, you'll see that one is wrestling choreographer. You know, the terminology in movies, it's always a little different. So this one was wrestling choreographer, so they could have me my own screen credit, which is massive. You know, it goes from, as you saw the movie, you know, the actors to the directors to the executive producers, and then my lone credit on the screen, which is, I was pretty flabbergasted. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you, bro. Awesome.
Because I don't think you have a line in the film, right? In the final
did,
cut?
but it got cut out. Damn. The scenes got cut out. And you know, when I did that scene, I was like, this is not a super pivotal scene. My acting was far and beyond everybody else's. It wasn't a pivotal scene. And you kind of know sometimes they got to trim the fat a lot of times. It's very easy to trim things down. You can't add. That's super hard to go reshoots and add more things. That's super costly. Might as well let's just get more stuff in there and then we can cut it out as we go. So it wasn't super pivotal, that scene. So I thought that maybe cut out. And it was.
I knew that you'd be in a lot of scenes in the movie, but it's such a true testament to how good you are that you almost don't notice you because you're making the other guys look so good in those scenes.
That's our job, man. That was my job actually in wrestling as well. You know, there was a play called The Wonderful World of Chad Deity or something like that, written by Christopher. I can't remember now. All of a sudden, I'm going blank. I should have thought about it. But he wrote this play, and I saw it in LA with Betty White was there. It was pretty crazy. And he said, I had you in mind when we wrote this play. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's about a wrestler that's always making everybody else look really good. That's so good that nobody can make him look good. But that was our job forever. You know, as Guerreros, we were pretty good in the ring. Our job was really a lot of times to help guys and elevate them and make them look really good. And that was Eddie's job for years until finally they thought, God, this guy's really good. Let's see if we can propel him somewhere, you know. But for years, he was making people look good. I remember in WCW, Eric Bischoff came out of the ring, and Conan was not having great matches at the time in WCW. And then Eric put him with Eddie, and they came out of the ring, and Eric runs up to Conan and goes, "Oh my God, I knew you could do such a great job." And we all looked at him like, it was Eddie. What are you talking about? It was 100% Eddie. And I'll call you out on that one, Eric, 100%. And maybe he was just giving Conan props because It was all Eddie. Eddie made him look like $1 million.
Yeah.
But that was how good Eddie was. And that's what we just learned from all of our family. We're supposed to make people look better. But in the movie, back to your question, that is what Sean Durkin approached me and said, hey, can you play this role in the movie? I'm playing the original Sheik, Ed Farrat, the original Sheik, the first one who was Sabu's uncle, I remember watching him as a kid. He used to wrestle for my grandfather, and he was so maniacal and sadistic. It was so crazy. But when he asked me to play that role, and at first I didn't want to, because it's going to take me away from watching behind the camera with Sean. How are we going to, shoot and tweak these scenes? Because I'm constantly, in any wrestling scene, I'm behind the camera with the director and really looking how I can, pivot the wrestlers to certain cameras and kind of tailor the scene to make it look better. So he said, this is just a pivotal part of the movie. I need you in it. I said, okay, let's do it. I'm glad I did it. It's a great thing, but
it's the first wrestling sequence we see in the movie too, isn't it?
For the most part. Yeah. I think when it starts off with Holt,
like Fritz, Fritz
way
back
doing the very start,
but it's
so it's
Zac's first match.
That's why Sean came to me to do it. And
I
tell you what though, after we shot that, because that's the very first scene that wrestling scene we shot in the movie, even though it doesn't play first. After that, any question that any executive producer or the director or the line producers had, it was just give it to Chavo. Whatever Chavo says, let's do it. But at first, he was like, I was getting questioned at times. We can't do this. Well, why? Well, and I totally get it. They don't know who I am. They trust me, but they don't know. Then after that scene, what I said went.
Was there any point in your career of doing this where they go, you're not really a Hollywood guy? I get you're a wrestling guy, but you don't see things as a Hollywood guy.
No, because I didn't come in the very first time and pretend I was a Hollywood guy. I would definitely step back and let the Hollywood people do their part, and then me do my wrestling part. But I'm a really good learner by watching. And that's how I learned kind of how to do all this, really, not only from my family, but from watching Vince McMahon, from watching Kevin Dunn, from watching Triple H, from watching all these guys and how they did. They didn't take me aside, and Vince wasn't going, okay, Chavo, this is A, B, C, D, how would you think? No, but I learned all that by watching him. And then same thing with Hollywood. Once I started getting it a little bit more, I had some really, really good teachers, really good people that I was watching. That's kind of how I became that guy. So now I am that guy behind the camera. So eventually I'm gonna direct. That's where I'm going.
Wow.
Like I follow directors all the time on different movies and really kind of watching the same thing, studying how they do it. That's my next role, is directing. That's really where I'm going.
Do you have a script?
I'm writing one right now.
Is it about the Guerreros?
It's not about the Guerreros, but it's pretty awesome. I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
It's got something to do with wrestling, but it's pretty good. In fact, Dave Bautista, my boy Dave, his production company, Dogbone Entertainment, he's got his own production company, the whole thing, and we're doing like a little collaboration, and hopefully we'll get this thing made.
Oh, this clip is going to be played back in like 2 or 3 years when this movie gets made.
I hope so, man. I hope so. I really love to, at least, if I'm not direct it, at least, you write it, you're a screenplay. I'm going to have a lot of say in it for sure. But we'll see. We'll see if that one goes through. I got a few different ones. I create as well. I created that Tales from the Territories with $7 with Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And we shot that. So that's kind of on the realm as well. It's creating stuff, and just, to make it in this business, you have to have a lot of irons in the fire. You really do, to kind of really, you gotta, until you become, Spielberg or the producer, main producer guy or whatever it is, you gotta kind of be really good at everything. And those guys are. The reason why Sean Durkin wrote this movie, because he wrote it. He helped, with his DP, Matthias, really, they worked together on how, like, it was like they were connected to the hip, Sean, at another time, I see him a little frustrated in there when we're filming this wrestling scene, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I don't have a cut part. I don't have a cut point." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm really good at editing. I just know that I don't have a cut part. I said, what do you need? I said, great, hold on a second. So I went to the actors. I said, this is what I need you to do. Let's do this, do this, do this. All right, let's shoot, like, just ready to shoot it. So they shot it. We got done. And then Sean looked at me and goes, that's what I needed.
Man.
Because he needed this cut point. He needed it. And then once we had that, okay, great. Now, because he can see, he can visualize where he's going to kind of splice that together. And, it's editing and he can just see that. So he just didn't have it. So he explained it to me. I got him the shot.
Do you think with what you've taught Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White, that if they were in the ring with a veteran, they could have a match on Raw this Monday?
Really tough. Really, really tough. Now, not saying that they aren't awesome, but I didn't train them for that.
Yeah.
I didn't train them to go to a match. Give me a month with them. Absolutely. Jeremy was incredible in the ring. He was so good. He would just kind of sit in the corner and kind of thinking. I'm like, you're right. He's like, oh, yeah, hold on. He's like, all right, I got it. Let's go.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really, really good like that. They were all really good, just in their all different ways. But I didn't train them to go have match. I trained them to look like a wrestler in a scene. But give me time with them. Like if I was training them for a match, it's totally different. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That feels like the Logan Paul method.
Logan Paul, man, he's doing an awesome job. He's doing great. But when we talked about that, I almost feel like he's doing perfectly for a celebrity. But those kind of matches is not the matches that we actually do in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
He's planning a lot of things, A to Z.
Yeah. They look great.
He looks amazing.
And the emotion that he has.
And not to take anything away from him, because he's far and beyond, I think, anybody. A lot of the wrestlers that I see now, he's doing so much better than.
Even Triple H was like, has no business being this good.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't really do that. I don't work on a match for a month.
Yeah.
Or 6 weeks. Man, guys, so many times we would just go in there and call it like a pay-per-view match in the ring. Eddie called the match with him and JBL when Eddie got all the color, was bleeding all over the place. Remember that? It was like when he dropped the belt, I believe it was. He called that match in the ring. Originally, Pat Patterson had come up to him and goes, hey, man, how about we do this? How about we do that? And Eddie just didn't feel it. And he looks at Pat and he looks at JBL, and JBL will tell you that. He goes, man, Eddie goes, I don't feel this. Do you mind if I just go in the ring and do it? And they're like, okay, this is the main event of a pay-per-view. Okay. And he went in there and called the entire match out there.
Wow.
When you call it, it means you're playing by feel. It's almost like a comedian. You have the comedians that are really good, that they have their jokes, they're set from A to Z lined up. And it's great when it goes right. But when it doesn't go right, it's really bad.
Yeah.
I love the comedians that are, they have an outline, but they're able to play off the crowd and really, they say some jokes here and there, but wherever they go, wherever the night takes them, and I love those kind of comedians. That's the wrestlers I love as well. It's kind of becoming a lost art, but guys like Triple H and Shawn Michaels and those guys were so good at it. They're really, really good.
Was there something that Zac Efron did in the ring that you were like, I can't believe you're picking this up so quickly?
A lot of things. They all did something in the ring that was really, really good. Where I was like, kind of, like shake my head, like, wow, okay, that you weren't supposed to be that good, but because you're doing that, that gives me another idea. I think you can do this, and I would make it a little bit better.
Zac's cross body was very impressive.
Well, I told him on that. I was like, hey man, so we started off very slow off the bottom rope to the second rope to the top rope with pads and everything. But once we got to the top, I said, okay, look, the higher you go, the easier it is. And he was kind of like, what do you mean? I said, the reason being is that as a spotter, if it's so low, I can't catch you. My reactions have to be so fast. But when you jump so high, you're floating. I can see you and you can see me. It seems like it's going to be harder, but it's easier. So he just trusted me, and we just went for it. Like, I still have the video on my iPhone of us practicing, and him jumping like how high. I was like, whoa, that's gonna be great. So then on camera, he jumped so high, he jumped out of frame. I'm like, okay. So now we had to shoot it, pull back a little bit, let's shoot it. That's how high he goes. Everybody's like, wow, amazing. And he just said an interview where when he just got done jumping out of of his crossbody, and some guy in the audience was like, now, boy, you're really flying now. And he was like, holy moly, I knew I was doing it right. But that's the whole trust.
Yeah, there's another example
They had
there.
to trust me.
You're the guy catching him, and I don't know if everybody who's seen the trailer realizes that's you in there, in that very pivotal scene.
Right.
That's just another example of you shining the light on somebody else.
Well, there's two ways to catch somebody in wrestling. You catch them with that force, bam, and you really show that. Or I slow them completely down. I don't care if they're a 300-pound guy jumping on me. I have to grab them, catch them around like my arms around their waist, and I have to slow their body weight down so they hit with a lot less impact. Because we were taking that right to the wrestling mat, not with a pad, a stunt pad. Anytime we shot, it was right to the mat. It hurts coming off that high, it really does. And I can't expect them to know how to fall like a wrestler. I, as the wrestler, have to protect them. And that's why a lot of times I need a wrestler in the ring in certain scenes.
People that are familiar with the Von Erich story obviously know it's tragic, right?
Right.
But I didn't think I'd be like as emotional watching this film as I was. I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
We've been really good here at being like completely spoiler free during this. But the scene towards the end, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh, it got me. That's all, not only the story, amazing. It's an amazing story, of course, but the way Sean shot it, he got you so invested to the characters that you really give a shit about them. Yeah.
You really do. Even if you've don't know who the Von Erich family is and you don't know who wrestling is, you care about those characters. And when the things happen to them that happen, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. Like, very Game of Thrones is. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones right now, and it's amazing how they kill these main characters. And I'm like, I forgot. It was amazing. But that's what we do in wrestling. We tell stories, and we have to get you invested to me as a wrestler. For instance, I think I've told this before, but one movie I saw had all of these explosions, and the whole movie was this real big, high flying, crazy car crashing, things exploding all over the place. Well, after 30 minutes of explosions, I get it. Okay, you can blow some stuff up.
Yeah.
And tell me a story. Like, make me care about these characters. And then at one point, the main character, like, his friend dies, and, there's still explosions going on, and he's like, no. And
which Fast and Furious movie are you talking about?
Well, in a sense, that wasn't that, but yes, the same thing with those. But that's how those movies are supposed to be. But once somebody dies, you don't really care about the guy. You're like, okay, just blow some more stuff up. You don't care. And I think we talked about them the last time, maybe on your podcast. But then at the same time, I saw Bridges of Madison County. And not that I wanted to see it, but I did. My wife took me to see it. Not one explosion, but at the end, when Clint Eastwood was going to go to Meryl Streep and didn't go, and it was raining, and there's this little podunk town at this little stoplight, and he didn't go to her. I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, the movie ended, and I just sat in my seat like, dang it, why didn't you go to her? Like, I almost wanted to cry. But it's because he got me invested in the character.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in wrestling.
Yeah.
The same thing, and that's what we do in movies. It's very similar. If I wish I would have known, I would have been involved with movies before I was a wrestler. I would have been a lot better wrestler.
That's interesting.
Absolutely.
How important was it for you to have these actors wrestling like Kerry Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, like Ric Flair, like any of the big names you have in the movie? Because it's one thing just to learn those moves, to make them look realistic. Right. It's another thing. It's like leveling up to go, yeah, but you got to make it look like Ric Flair.
Okay, who can look like Ric Flair? Ric Flair is so iconic. It's very difficult to look like Ric Flair. It's very difficult to look like a Kerry or Kevin Von Erich, a David Von Erich. Very, very difficult. So we try. I can teach them the moves all they want, but I try to get their innuendos, like the stuff that they do in the ring, their little tells that you can tell who that is.
Yeah.
I can throw a drop kick, but can I throw a Kevin Von Erich drop kick? Totally different. I try to get Zac to throw Kevin Von Erich drop kicks, and it was trial and error. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
But I think we kind of grabbed that essence a little bit.
What does Kevin think of the movie?
Kevin really liked it. We were curious on that because this is his story about all of his family that tragically passed, and he really liked it. And I think Bruce Pritchard just said, this is very, it was really good, but it wasn't 100% accurate. We're like, well, duh. This is Bruce, it's based on a true story. What movie is ever exactly the same? This is not a documentary.
Yeah,
this
but
is
I mean,
a movie.
One Von Erich brother isn't even in the movie.
Exactly. And I brought that up to Sean when I read the script. I said, that there's the other that's
Chris
not in
Von
there.
Erich's not in the movie.
Yeah, and Sean had a great point. He just said it's just too much.
Yeah.
It was too much tragedy. I mean, we only have a certain amount of time to tell the story, and where
to go from 2 suicides to now 3 suicides.
Exactly. And I explained to is Carrie's children. So I think it was Lacey and Holly, and they kind of mentioned Uncle Chris is in the movie, and I said, well, let's think about where the movie wanted to go. Are we telling a great movie or are we doing a documentary? Two different things. And they're like, yeah, you have a point here. And I said, a documentary, we're going to put it on Discovery Channel, the whole 3-part series, whatever. Great, let's do it. To tell it justice. I go, but for a movie, I mean, who wants to see a 3.5-hour movie?
Yeah.
With more and more tragedies and more, it's tough.
Yeah, that's the biggest complaint about Martin Scorsese's new film. It's
Right.
too long.
It's
3.5 hours.
Our
Killers of the Flower
attention
Moon.
span is so small now. Anytime I go to see a 3-hour movie, I'm like, I don't know if I have the time for that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I got to go to the bathroom
Yeah,
halfway.
by the time you drive to the theater, watch the trailer, sit through the film.
Exactly. I
drive
want to be able
home,
to. I'll watch it at home on my, my theater at home, and I can pause it when my wife's talking, or I can go. I can follow. I'm getting tired. Let me, start this again tomorrow.
Sure.
All day long, but 3.5-hour movie is very tough to watch.
There's a line at the beginning of Cody's entrance theme. Wrestling has more than one royal family. Obviously, that's the Rhodes. That's also the McMahons. Right. That's the Guerreros. Sure. That's also the Von Erichs. I'm sure there's some other ones you could throw in there.
Yeah, we got the Blanchards, the Ortons, the whole Samoan dynasty. I mean, there's so many of them. But yes,
I feel like they could make a movie just like the Iron Claw about your family.
They probably can. We've had some definitely triumphs and some tragedies in there as well. I've had people reach out to me. Pedro Pascal, talked about it. A couple of other, the lead from the Mayans.
Would Pedro play Eddie?
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy, right? But we've had some people reach out and do some stuff like that. But are we still writing our story? Who knows? It's like, who knows?
Yeah.
That's very possible.
I feel like the story is still being written. I mean, the fact
my story is, at least the Chavo Guerrero Jr. story is still being written, but Guerrero story, we definitely could,
Your story in Hollywood's really just getting written.
Just get started.
20, 30 years from now, we're going to be talking about all of the wrestling films that you were a part of.
I hope. I hope we continue doing that. And not just the wrestling films, the other films. I want to branch out from not just wrestling. Once you become a director and start directing like that, you have that eye or you don't. And hopefully I'll have it.
I feel like the story is continuing with everything that Dom is doing these days.
Yeah, Dominik Mysterio's killing it, right? He's doing so good. I mean, he's far beyond where he should be in as far as being good as well.
And part of that is growing up with Ray as his father, or is Eddie his father?
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool to see them doing all this stuff. And we talked about that before. You get a lot of people, especially because of Eddie and how monumental and like cult following he has, and how many people see how really great he is and was. You get a lot of people really trying to capitalize off of the Guerrero name and Eddie's name. I see it all the time. I mean, I just saw it on a house show the other day I was on, and they started doing Eddie spots, and I'm like, why are you doing that when I was next after you guys? And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't think about that. I'm like, guys, I get it, but you just did it, and everybody thought about Eddie. They didn't think about you. And they're like, yeah, you're right. But I see that a lot. And if anybody can do it, Dominik can do it, and Ray can do it because of what, their history with them and stuff.
When you started seeing Dominik growing out his hair having the
Yeah, I
Eddie
mean,
mullet.
he looks like Eddie, right?
He looks an awful lot like Eddie.
Eerily, right?
I think there's...
Is he really, is Eddie's poppy? I don't know.
You
We'll
tell
see,
me. You know better than me.
Right. I guess this is a question for Angie.
Like his father is 5'4" and
Yeah.
Dom's 6'2" or whatever.
Well, then Eddie was only like 5'7" too, so maybe somebody else. But they're doing an awesome job with it, and which I like is that they kind of let it go. They didn't continue doing it. He's still not saying that was very prevalent in the early parts of their storyline. But now I don't even think Dom's even really.
He does the frog splash.
He does a frog splash. He
looks
looks
just like
Eddie,
Eddie's.
100%. He just got a great frog splash.
He does.
Yeah, and he knows. I mean, doing that frog splash, it knocks the crap out of you. It hurts you sometimes more than it hurts the person down there. So
he doesn't do the Three Amigos anymore.
good. I like that. Thank you very much. Thank you for not stealing everything.
But is it and obviously he's paying homage to Eddie and your family. Is there?
Well, he's also collecting a big paycheck for it as well, and I don't know if the paycheck wasn't there, would he still be doing it, or would he have moved on to imitating somebody else? That's what I always kind of wonder about. It's like, okay, hold on a second, because the zeros behind those numbers are probably pretty big, especially right now the way WWE is paying. To me, it's like also it's great, awesome. You're paying homage, but what's your motive?
Is there any part of that bothers you?
When Eddie's daughters aren't reaping the benefits, yes. To me, I'm always looking, and if anybody should be making the money off of Eddie Guerrero, it should be Eddie's daughters.
I'm sure they're still making money off of the merchandise.
I don't know if that's correct.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that's correct. At least talking to them about it.
Wow.
I'm not them. I'm not the say-all, be-all, but that's something that I would definitely wish that they were.
Yeah.
That's their dad. They shouldn't have to worry about, that should have been in their, his will, his persona, his name and likeness should be to them. Just like Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley first went to Priscilla, but his granddaughter, who was in the TV show Riley,
yeah, she
owns Graceland now.
Wow.
That went to her. She had to fight Priscilla for it a little bit, from what I'm understanding, but she owns that. It's the daughters, and then after her mom died,
Lisa Marie.
After Lisa Marie died, it went to her, but Lisa Marie owned that Graceland and stuff. So I just Eddie's daughters don't have something like that, and I really, that upsets me a little bit. I mean, anybody, right? You think should have gone up to the daughters for sure, but yeah. So that's maybe something hopefully we can change in the future. I really would wish them, because it's not for me. I don't need to. I got my own thing.
Yeah.
Let them make the money off of their father.
Do you think about Eddie every day?
Yeah, he's always there, man. He was my brother. Technically he was my uncle, but God, we were so close. We grew up as brothers. He was 3 years in age difference. That absolutely. And anytime you're on social media, I get posts every single day. People posting or tagging me on Eddie stuff. So I see it every single day. So do I think about him? 100%. But it's good. It's a good thing. Maybe it helps you not forget, but also sometimes you just want to move on as well.
Yeah. Well, he has such a legacy. It's such a legacy in this sport.
He absolutely does. He absolutely does. And he was just so good at his craft.
Speaking of social media, why did you decide to be @MexWarrior on Twitter? You're at Chavo Guerrero Jr. on Instagram, @MexWarrior.
Because Twitter was the first first big time social media where you get all your stuff out there. We had Facebook at the time. Facebook wasn't that yet. I just did it for my own personal things from people from high school and that kind of stuff. But Twitter, and somebody already used @Chavo.
Okay.
And
just Chavo.
And @Chavo Guerrero. And I believe they used @Chavo Guerrero Jr. So I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? So that's why I used @Mexican Warrior, @MexWarrior. That's why I did that. And I don't know, there you go.
I feel like you could probably get @Chavo Guerrero back if you wanted it.
If I wanted to pay for it, right? I mean, but is it?
I don't know. Make some sort of a trademark claim and just be like, hey, that's my name.
Yeah, but people trademark, .coms and all that kind of stuff. Thank God I own ChavoGuerreroJr.com. But there's other things that I tried to get that we're we're taking already.
Yeah.
There's people that will. I mean, that's a great little hustle, a little side hustle. They actually trademark all of these domains
like
and then
squatter.
we'll sell them off.
Yeah.
Somebody wants them, so you trademark. I don't know, like a Nike.com before Nike, and then Nike's got to buy it from you.
Yeah,
of course, that
yeah.
didn't happen, but just something like that.
How often do you keep in contact with Dwayne Johnson?
With his production company, a lot. With Dwayne himself, Dwayne's a pretty busy guy.
Sure.
If I need to call him, different story. I could call the people to get a message to him 100%. But
Is he pretty hands-on during Young Rock?
Yes, he was definitely hands-on during Young Rock. Really, the main wrestling guys was Brian Gewirtz and myself. We really had a lot to say with the wrestling, but we always deferred to Rocky. I still call him Rocky. to Dwayne.
Yeah.
We really deferred to Dwayne and everything because that's his show, it was his character that we were putting, his story. So any of the wrestling stuff, we kind of would run it by Dwayne a lot of times, and he'd give the thumbs up or hey, change that, add this, stuff like that.
What about Vince? So you talked about Vince earlier on. What do you think's the biggest thing you learned from working with Vince McMahon?
Vince, I've learned a lot of things, what to do and what not to do as well. Vince, what I've learned from Vince is the main thing is this, and it's coming from Vince's mouth to me. He goes, Chavo, and his voice, his deep voice, just got this.
Everyone does a Vince. I love it.
Chavo, I have failed a lot more than I've succeeded. But when I succeeded very big. And it made me think, like, he was not afraid to crash and burn. If he helped finance the Ali and Noki fight, he helped finance Evel Knievel jumping the Snake River, if I'm not mistaken. This is things I've heard, of course. I wasn't out there. But those, those weren't real, those were a lot of big flops. But also, he financed, WrestleMania by mortgaging his house and mortgaging everything. And he told me, he goes, if this wasn't a hit, if WrestleMania 1 was not a hit, he was done.
Wow.
And of course, look what it turned into. But I learned that, I really learned that from Vince was don't be afraid to fail,
Yeah.
and you never lose, you just learn.
Yeah.
You really don't, and I wouldn't be where I'm at now with my failures in the past. They put me on this path and made me make certain and right decisions later on.
It's pretty amazing because a lot of wrestlers don't think about life after wrestling.
Right.
You were very good at going, all right, what's next? Maybe you could have done it earlier, like you said.
Absolutely.
But this career that you're doing now has the potential to overshadow what you did before.
Yeah, that's I just got that from Eric Bischoff the other day. We were having a beer at one of the Russellcades, Russell
Russellcade, yeah.
We're having a beer and he goes, Chavo, this is from his mouth and I don't know his opinion, mine, but he goes, out of all the people that got into Hollywood, you're doing the best. And I was like, okay, hold on. There's Dave Bautista, there's John Cena, there's The Rock. And he goes, well, except for The Rock's, who's got his own production company stuff. He goes, but everybody else has a shelf life in a sense.
Yeah.
He goes, yours doesn't have a shelf life. You can do it until you can't think anymore. You could be 85 years old still doing what you're doing. I go, I guess you're right. That's true. But I didn't really think about it that way. I just, I've been on camera a lot, and that's very, very hard for wrestlers. We're such egomaniacs that we have to be in that position to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
But I just feel that, like, I didn't want to stay on camera and have to, okay, I got to be the one. I've done that. I want to be behind the camera, and it's much more rewarding to me. Like, I see what something starts out on paper or as an idea, and we follow it all the way through, and then I see it on the screen.
Yeah.
Or on TV, and it's like, wow, that was a lot of hard work, and we got it done. Like, it's pretty cool to see that. It makes me think. It makes me use my mind a lot. Wrestling, being in the ring was just second nature, and I didn't. It was just like a sixth sense. I didn't have to think. It just happened.
Yeah.
But in Hollywood, you definitely do have to think and just really use your brain. And it's like a Jenga puzzle. I'm constantly like I'm doing like like Rain Man. I'm like, okay, the square root of the hypotenuse, the right triangle is like, I'm putting all these things together. Like, okay, that has to work. And then I got to put this camera and this camera angle on, and I got to use this actor's ability, but then I got to change that because I got another actor in here, and then we got a script, and it's a lot of juggling act. It was awesome, man. When you get it done, it's amazing. There's some times that I'll just sit in the ring. I'll go to the ring before we shoot. I'll get there an hour before, and I'll just start looking at placement where I had, I had placement of these guys here, and I'm kind of like really thinking about how are we gonna shoot this? Is that right? Maybe I should pivot these guys on this part of the sequel of the wrestling choreography this way. Yeah. And then there's another things like sometimes they bring in different cameras that I didn't know they're gonna have. For instance, on Young Rock one season, they brought in a crane. A crane camera. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know you're going to have this. I said, hold on a second. I said, okay, when we first shot that, we had, at one point I had one of the wrestlers pressing another one of the wrestlers and then dropping them and going to something else. I said, well, now you have the crane there. What if if the actor can do this, I'm going to have him press this actor and hold him for like 2 or 3 beats until I see that crane pull out. And as soon as that crane starts pulling out, I'll have him drop the wrestler. But when he drops, the actor, drop the actor. But then I had him circling to his left, or I had him circling to his right, but that's crossing B camera. That camera plays really good on this part. So I'm going to have him, it's going to seem weird, but I'm going to have him cross to the left and then face B camera after that. So we shot it and they're like, that's a shot. That's it. So it's a very fine line because I'm not directing, at least not yet. I'm not directing. I'm working with the director to get him that shot. Yeah. In a sense, it's a fine line. I'm not trying to step on any toes, but we're both trying to put on the best, the best scene as possible. Thank God I've had only great directors that saw that. They're, absolutely, let's do it. Yeah. And I haven't had the people that are like egomaniacs going like, no, I'm the director. I say so. When that comes, and it'll be, and sometimes you just got to shut up and like, all right, you're the director. And they, and there's a lot of times that I second guessed Vince McMahon, and then afterwards I'd see it on TV and I'd be like, damn it, he was right.
So we've both seen the Iron Claw.
Yes.
What do you think wrestling fans are in for when they see this?
They're in for an awesome ride with some really great wrestling, but a great story. It's a great story about a tremendous wrestling family that had a lot of trials, and it really shows the glue that can either keep a family together or can completely tear them apart.
Yeah, and get ready to cry.
Yeah, and
definitely a few of those scenes.
For sure, but also too, you could have left the screening thinking, okay, that's it. My life's over. I'm slitting my wrists. Because being so sad, because that's where that story could have gone. But it didn't. And if you look at the end, you almost leave like, it was a standing ovation in Dallas. That was pretty awesome, wasn't it? Like I sure what to expect because I saw a screening of it. But, a screening of just me and the director and the editor is one thing. I'm looking at, how are the wrestling fans going to react? I'm like, there's people that are not happy unless they're unhappy, so they're going to criticize anything. And I get it. I get what I already know. I can already tell what they're going to say about certain things. Maybe not the wrestling scenes, but certain actors portraying other people. I can see it. But at the same time, we weren't really tailoring it just for them. We're tailoring it for the mainstream audience to actually see a great film. Yeah. So I just think that the wrestling fans are going to see something that's pretty awesome. That's paying homage to what they like. Yeah. Because a lot of times wrestling fans, what happens a lot of times they get, they'll get made fun of because they're liking wrestling and from people that don't get it. And once people get it, like, oh, I get it now. Okay. But this is like, we're doing a service, like really, really like giving these wrestling fans something awesome they can be proud of. That's what I'm really proud of.
Yeah, the excitement leading into this is huge. I think after the movie comes out, people are just going to be talking about this like crazy. So I'm so glad we got to like dive deep into this. Yeah. This is going to make people even more excited to see the movie.
I hope so. I hope so. It's a great film, man. It's a great film, and it's, yeah, you just go watch it. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, you're gonna love
Yeah.
it. You're gonna love. It's like Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
If you weren't like a racing fan, it's still a great movie.
Yeah, great example. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ended our last interview with and that I end every interview with.
Right.
What are 3 things in your life you're grateful for right now?
I always say my family's, number one for sure. I'm grateful for my faith also as well. God, I'm just grateful to wake up every morning.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to wake up and be like, I got a pretty good life. My life is my life is pretty, it's pretty awesome, And sometimes I just look around my house and my family and just think like right now it's all decorated for Christmas and stuff. And I looked at my wife the other day and I was like, hey, thank you for making our house a home, because it really is that. It's a testament to her. It's 100% her. But I'm really grateful for. I'm in a really good spot.
I love that.
Yeah.
Chavo, so good to see
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thanks,
Great
brother.
to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure.
Awesome, man.